Welcome to this session. So today we're going to talk about data engineering career path. So we invited two speakers who are WeCloudData's Data Engineering Bootcamp alumni. They will be sharing their experience either doing a career switch or a role switch in the same company. And before we get started, I just want to let everyone know that we just dropped the new data engineering career guide for 2023. This is probably the most comprehensive data engineering career guide you will find on the internet. So allow me to spend 1 minute to guide you through this, career guide. I'll share the link with you as well. Let me send it to Zoom chat. Okay, so in this career guide, we introduce data engineering, and then we also talk about data engineer, what the role is about. We talk about career path, the job market, and also we discuss the learning path in a lot of details, and also share some of the tips on how to build a portfolio project. So spend a couple of seconds on each one of these pages to help you understand what we have created for you. So in the what is data engineering section, we will introduce the overall like end-to-end data engineering process, right? From data collection to ingestion, data storage, transformation, data pipelines, automation, and also data governance. So very high level overview, and we'll discuss them in detail when we introduce the learning path. And then we would talk about, can data engineering job be automated? And then we move on to talk about the traditional data engineering and also the modern data engineering. Introduce different roles and also different tool stack. So I think these are some of the things, aspiring data engineers will need to know. I think one of the speakers today, Hamza, he's actually working as an analytics engineer. So the modern data stack is very popular right now. Fivetran, Airbyte, DBT, things like reverse ETL. So we cover some of these concepts, and also we cover data lakehouse and big data and serverless data engineering. So I think these are the three trends in data engineering nowadays. And then we move on to introduce data engineer career. So we talk about, so in the data engineering introduction, we introduce the end-to-end workflow, but then we'll talk more about what data engineers actually do for data collection, data ingestion. So you'll find a lot of details, and hopefully you can use this as a guide on how to stay on the right track when you're venturing into the data engineering world. And then in a career path, we talk about some of the potential paths you can go down as a data engineer, whether it's staff engineer, senior lead engineer, or if you want to go down the managerial path. Sometimes data engineers switch to data science, switch to software engineer as well. So hope you'll find these useful. In the job market section, I think we provided some of the latest status on the job market, average salaries, for data engineers in the US and Canada, years of experience requirement based on the data we collected from Indeed and LinkedIn. Yeah, it will be a good read for you. And I guess the most useful part in this career guide is actually how to get started. So in the learning path page, we introduce WeCloudData's data engineering curriculum to everyone. So if you want to self-learn, become a self-made data engineer, you can follow this structured curriculum. So we cover, some of the important topics and cover, fundamentals, what you should be learning. And we introduce analytics engineering in detail as well. So the kind of databases you need to learn, data warehouse, how to work with connectors, ETL, ELT, DBT. And then we move on to big data engineering, where we cover distributed system, data lake. But some of these are very exciting, tools and technologies that I think data engineers will need to learn and grasp. And then we also provided some portfolio project presentation done by our alumni in the past. So I hope you guys find this useful. All right, now back to our main topic. We will be introducing the panel discussion. So I'll introduce the panelists, and then we prepared 8 to 9 questions. If you have any questions, feel free to send them to Zoom chat. I'll make sure that we address those questions. Quick introduction to WeCloudData before we get started. So we are Data Science and Analytics Learning Academy. We have data science boot camps and diploma programs. Future cohorts start in March and April. We also have business intelligence and data analytics program. If you're not that into machine learning and math, BI and data analytics will be a a good option. And we of course have data engineering bootcamp. So the next cohort actually starts this month at the end of the month, and it's a 6 months part-time program. And we cover a lot of the core technologies that we mentioned in the data engineering career guide. And if you come from a machine learning background or data science, we also have an AI engineering diploma program where we cover MLOps and also computer vision and natural language processing. All right, that's my quick intro. Without further ado, I would like to introduce the speakers, Laura and Hamza. So they both graduated from our data engineering bootcamp last year, or maybe the year before last year. And Laura is currently, I think, working on machine learning operations and also data engineering at TELUS. And Hamza is an analytics engineer. He recently, I think, became analytics engineer. He used to work in BI. So yeah, I think you'll find, hopefully, the perspective they bring into this conversation will be helpful to everyone. Hey, Laura. Hey, Hamza. Now I think it's time for you guys to do a quick self-introduction, and introduce yourself. And we would love to learn a little bit more about your current job as a data engineer or ML engineer.
Hi. Can you hear me okay? I think so, right? Okay, cool. So yeah, so my name is Laura. Talk a little bit about me. So my background, I started TELUS as a data analyst. So I switched my career from data analyst to ML engineer. And yeah, and then right now I'm working as an ML engineer. And I would say like I am super happy with what I do right now. And this course, this bootcamp helped me a lot.
Thanks, Laura. So you didn't really switch job, right? So you stayed with the same company, but you switched your role. That's my understanding.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I was a data analyst. And then when I joined the bootcamp, actually everything happened at the same time. So when I joined the bootcamp, at the same time, I switched to another team. And this team was an AI team, but I was supposed to be a data analyst there. And then as I was doing already my data engineer bootcamp, and I was interested in going more in this side, the team was giving me the opportunity like to take a little bit more of my of engineering side, not only the data analysis. So yeah, so I started like taking care of the tables for the data scientists, creating like the feature store and automating everything. So that's how I started. And then when I finished the bootcamp, like I think a month later, then my manager gave me the opportunity like to switch totally to ML position. So then taking care of the infrastructure and then like working more with APIs, because that's the way we do like to deploy machine learning models. So now my job is end to end. So since the tables, creating of bringing new features for the data scientists, they create their models, and then we go in and deploy this machine learning model to production, creating like APIs and making everything in an automated way.
Cool. Thanks, Laura. Hamza, how about you?
So hi, I am Hamza. So I guess my background first. So I used to be a chemical engineer, worked as a process engineer for 4 years. But then I was just tired about the lack of innovation in field. It was pretty same every day. But I got introduced to data in that field. I was doing like some troubleshooting in chemicals and all that stuff. I wanted to change my field, but have no idea how to do it. So the first thing that came into my mind was to do a certificate from EDX, which is an online website from Harvard. So I did a data science certificate from there, but in the end, even after doing that certificate, I had no idea how to get from that just certificate to the job. Like that link was missing. And that's when I decided, okay, I've already spent like 6 months, 8 months trying to learn myself. And that's how I got to figure out that there's a boot camp that I can take in data engineering. I was slowly starting to develop interest in data engineering, starting to know what it is. I did my boot camp in, in 2021, and then using that boot camp and skills I gained, I got my first job as a data analyst in Properly. And a year after, I decided that I want to do a little more of data engineering. And that's how I got my second job, which is analytics engineering in Two Cows. Uh, just to give you a little bit of background, so I will give you two things, what Two Cows does. So it's B2B platform, so consumers might not know a lot about it, but it's domain registrar. We have a telecommunication service as a software as a service, SaaS product, and we have internet and phone products in US. And what I am responsible for is the transformation part of the ETL. So I do data modeling. I use Stitch to get data loaded into our Snowflake warehouse, and then take it to use dbt to model it, and then give it to the end users in the end so that they can use it and make decisions out of it. So that is kind of my current job right now.
That's awesome. Thanks for the self-introduction, guys. Let's move on to the second question. So what was the biggest challenge during your career switch or role switch?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, my career switch, my role switch was a little bit different, but I would say first for me was like the bootcamp is teaching us more about AWS, and I work with GCP. So, but it's good, like have knowledge into different clouds. But yeah, for me it was a little bit difficult to know what was happening in GCP. But more than that, I would say, I think the biggest challenge for me is it's not having the knowledge, the correct knowledge, the basic knowledge about programming. So I recommend you like to learn how to code since the beginning. I think there will be more questions about it. So yeah, so for me the biggest challenge is coding, like programming, and then yeah, this is like this basic knowledge. For me, it's something that I missed a lot in the beginning.
Cool. So I guess you struggled a bit with programming at the very beginning, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. How long would you say like it took you to get more comfortable with programming? Was it during the boot camp, or is it after the boot camp, at work that you apply more programming now?
Yes, I would say like after, when I really have like problems to solve, and then I had to solve by myself, right? Because like the bootcamp is not, the idea is not, it's not focused in the code itself, right? So there will be people giving to you the code and explaining the code for you. But for me, I think I really learned it when I had a problem and I had to solve that by myself. And I think that's why it's important. Like when people say to you that start doing projects, work like doing projects and your portfolio. That's I think is the best way to learn, because you'll be solving problems by yourself.
Cool. Thanks, Laura. I still remember the group project presentation you guys did. It was pretty impressive. I think the 3 of you guys worked in a team. Hamza, how about you?
So I guess for me, because I was not even in the tech field, it was quite challenging. And I would say the biggest challenge was so you can find jobs of data. If you want to be a data engineer, you go to LinkedIn and you search for data engineering job, and then you start seeing that they're asking for 1+ years of experience in this tool, 2+ years of experience in this tool. In internet, in YouTube, you can find those tools. You can learn all about those tools, but what does 2 years of experience mean? Like, I have no clue. Like, so basically reading the job and then converting into what I have to do to get that job was quite difficult, because it's not very clear what they really want. And even the tools that you want to learn, you don't know how deep you want to go into them, because again, I don't know if I learn all of the Airflow, which is impossible to do, but how much do I learn? So I guess without the bootcamp, that would be something that I wouldn't be able to figure out, is how much do I have to learn, what skills are needed, what tools work in synergy. So I should learn this and this together, because I'm most probably going to get a job where these 2 tools are coming together. So just identifying that whole thing, I think was the biggest challenge for me.
Cool. Thanks, Hamza. Well, let's move on to this 3rd question. Why did you pick bootcamp over other learning options? I think you touched on this a little bit already. Hamza, maybe you can go first.
Okay, so again, my problem was that I was looking at online resources. There are just too many resources out there. They ask you to do a lot of things, and I already spent a year trying to figure out what I should learn, using those guides that I see online, and it was just so difficult and overwhelming to figure out how can I get a job in the end. Like, I can learn all that, but does that mean I will get a job? And there was no track record attached to those learning options saying, there are this many people learned from here and this many people got job or anything like that. So I think bootcamp, what it did in 6 months, I had to work super hard to learn a skill. But in the end, I got out, like, I was able to turn it into a job. And I think the other options was the list was too long, too scattered, and they were not ending up in a job in the end. I don't know how to get a job using those learning options. So that was why I picked bootcamp.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Can I go?
No, go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I think I agree with like why I did pick a bootcamp, because I researched a lot. When I decided that, okay, that's what I want to do. When I learned about data engineer, actually, I didn't know about data engineer before. So when I started to look like what this person will be doing, if you Google it, there is a roadmap for data engineer, and then like there's so many tools, so many. It's and then I try to list all of them and I think I tried to organize myself to learn itself. Each of the tools in the list, and I was like, okay, I can do it. I'm not so organized. I am not so good learning by myself all these things. So I decided, okay, I think I prefer I think I would prefer a bootcamp, because then they have the knowledge I need to know organized. And there will be like TA sessions, there will be a teacher, and then I can ask questions, and there will be other people, colleagues, and then we can ask and learn together. So I think that's why I pick a boot camp. It's because I needed that the whole curriculum organized for me, and then in a place where I can ask questions and it makes sense, like be able to really understand everything, connect all the dots, and then be able to say like, okay, I'm understanding this, I understand this technology here, and yeah, that's why.
Thank you. Next question. Do you have any suggestions on how to get started with data engineering? Now that you've gone through the boot camp, you've switched to data engineering or ML engineering, and also both of you are helping us on the teaching side right now. So you mentor students and work with students on solving challenges during their learning phase. Any suggestions for our audience who would like to get started with data engineering?
I guess I can go first. I would say, and I think Laura would say that as well, is SQL and Python. So definitely those are the two things. Make sure you are learning those, those two languages, because they're quite common in data engineering. So it's always good to have a good fundamental understanding of what's happening, how to do things in it, and things like that. The second thing I would say is to use resources, and Shahwa just showed us a resource that that WeCloudData just shipped. Or go to any website and see what tools are popular. Go to LinkedIn, see what tools are getting repeated again and again, and start learning those tools. And I would recommend to not like try to see how many years of experience or things are needed in each tool, and that's how you determine how much depth you need in that tool. So if some job is saying Airflow is 1 year, don't go too deep, but if it says Python programming is 3 years, now you have to go very deep into it. So that's how you figure out how deep you have to learn a certain skill. And then just once you have all that done, put it in the resume and start applying jobs, because applying jobs, you would have failure at the first stance where you're just learning how to get your resume done and all that stuff. And then after that, you will start seeing, okay, I get one interview, then you will fill the interview round. So make sure you're applying jobs with the sense that you would fail first, and then hopefully you will figure it out in the end. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I totally agree with Musa. So yeah, first thing, like learn Python, proper Python, and then and SQL. Like I think you need to have like this basic knowledge. I would add also like shell script. Know what is a script? Like I didn't know that before the bootcamp, so I really didn't have the basic knowledge. The bootcamp will give that to you, but at the same time, it's something you need to spend some time to learn. And that's super useful. Like I use that all the time when working. And what else? Yeah, I would also say like learn a little bit about Linux, and start learning about the data structure, right? So if you want to be like a data engineer and you are interested in applying, and you started this bootcamp, so you need to know what you'll be doing, right? So there are so many resources out there, so many things to read. So start to read about it. So what the data engineer is doing. So this is for starting learning the AHD, right? So I don't know if learning tools before. So if you be applying to a bootcamp, you'll be learning the tools, and maybe you'll be a little bit overwhelmed. So I would say like try to focus on the basic things, right? So programming, a little bit of Linux, scripts, and then read what a data engineer does, and start learning like, or read about cloud if you don't know what is cloud, right? So that would be, I work like 100% in cloud. So I think it's super useful, and you can start learning before the bootcamp starts.
Thank you. Cool. Let's move on to question 5. Can you tell us about your data engineering, like the portfolio project you did during the bootcamp?
Sure, I guess I can go first. So data engineering projects that we did. So I built with my team a batch. So the first step is to in the midterm, we have to build a batch pipeline. So we basically take a API or CSV or whatever, and then we write the whole code to make sure we clean it, we process it, and put it into the data warehouse in the end. So we built a whole end-to-end project where we took the data, and as soon as data arrives, everything is triggered. So you can get those results in the end in a visualization that you can see and say, okay, so this is the new data, and this is what this data is about. So it was pretty cool when we built it, because it's like, oh, I can just put one CSV file, wait for a few minutes, and there is all visualizations ready for me. So that was the first project I worked on, and the second project that we worked on was the streaming process. So now we are saying that instead of giving a CSV and analyzing it, why don't we give it something streaming like Twitter API, where there are tweets coming all over the place, and you pick a topic from a tweet saying, like, for example, World Cup or something, and then using that topic, you can create visualizations like how many matches were there, how many tweets are there, and what is happening in that whole World Cup topic. So, and that becomes way more interesting because you can sleep on it at night, and in the morning you have a certain visualization ready that tells you exactly what happened in Twitter about that topic at night. So that was our second project. So that's what I worked on.
Yeah, for me it was pretty much the same. Yeah, but my second project was not about Twitter, it was about the bus design. So I don't know if you know, streaming data is like real-time data. So data is coming real-time from an API, and then that will be going to a database, and then we connect like a tool for visualization, and then you can see the data, like the numbers increasing. So it's pretty cool. Like when you see everything connected, and you can see like the data flowing to the pipeline. That was a good feeling. And then I think at that time I realized, okay, so that's the way, like, then I can visualize in my work how the data is coming there, because before the bootcamp I didn't know, right? So okay, so that's the way they're doing. They're doing it. Then I try to investigate actually what they're doing at in my work. And also we learn how to work with GitHub, which is another super important tool. So we work with GitHub in my work too. So I just try to find their code there and read the code, how they're doing stuff. So yeah, so pretty cool. And also we had like small projects, not projects they call, I don't remember how they call, but like we have a small projects in between the big projects. So labs, oh, that's the name. So we have labs, small labs between, and then and then you can like you have a lot of activities like how to create scripts and run the script that will be running, and creating the whole database and feeding the data there automatically just with one command. So yeah, but pretty much just we have two big projects and small labs in between.
Cool, thanks. I actually want to mention the portfolio project. So if you go to this page, you should be able to find some presentation, sample presentation. You can get it from YouTube as well. So let me share the link with everyone. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Where did you apply for jobs? I guess for Laura, it was it was not a problem because she just transitioned to a different role. I guess the question is more for Hamza here. And how many interviews did you get? I guess you went through job search like twice, right? You got a DA job first, and then you moved on to data analytics engineering. Would you like to share some of your experience? And Laura, feel free to add anything like, regarding internal transition.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess because we are in data industry, I love to keep data about how many jobs I apply and how many interviews and all that stuff. So so in 2021, that's just after the boot camp, I started applying for jobs, and I applied for 50 jobs in total. And 60% had no answer. So either it's ghosted or just rejected without anything. So that would be like 30 jobs where there's nothing. And then 28 jobs were like where I got so sorry, 60% were no answers, so completely ghosted. 28% was rejected. So that is just they review my resume, said not a good fit, or we don't need the skills we need, you don't have it. Among the other jobs, so among 50 jobs, I got 6 interviews in the end. And then I was able to convert it into 2 offers where I selected one offer. So I would say my rate was like 4% is my application to offer rate at that time. And in 2022, which is recently, so I got laid off because of the recent tech crisis. And when I got laid off, I was like, okay, my job search would be like, instead of 50 jobs, I would be applying for 100 jobs because it's just like the job market is too difficult right now. But thankfully, that didn't happen. I've applied to 10 jobs, get rejected by 7 of them, so 70%. Got 3 interviews and converted all those in. So 3 interviews, I got 2 offers, and even the third interview, I have to stop them because I already had 2 offers. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to the next step. And I'm pretty sure if I would have continued, there's a huge chance of offer there as well. So my application to offer ratio at that time was 30%. And you can see as you get more experience, then even if you get 1 year of experience, because of such a huge demand in this field, your ratios can really improve. The things, so where did I apply for jobs? I went into LinkedIn. That was my main source of job application. And then again, in the first time when you're entering in the field, there's a lot of rejection. So I always say, make sure you apply as soon as possible, get those rejections, get as much, ask people how your resume is looking and try different resumes, and whatever then fits, then you go to the next step where there's interview, like programming round. So you will fail the programming round a little bunch of times and you will learn from it. So make sure you invite failure, you like failure, because if you fail, try to research why you fail, and then that's how you can improve. So I think that would be my takeaway from my whole application, job applications.
Yeah, I think I can add something actually. As Hamza just mentioned, like the more like experience you have, more opportunity you have. So I added to my LinkedIn, I added the bootcamp and some tools we learned. And also I added a headline saying like data engineer. And then I received so many recruiters, like every week, many like asking, like inviting me to participate in a interview or sending me the job descriptions, everything. As I was not interested at the time, actually it was like last year, and then I was not interested, so I did not try it. I tried actually once, but then I had to remove their headline. Like, okay, I don't want the data engineer anymore there because I am not interested right now in switch to another company. So I had to remove that. So I think it's because I have some experience already at Telos, and then of course adding a headline saying data engineer and the tools I learned. Even I don't use in my work right now, but I have like the tools there, so I think they can find me very easy. So I think LinkedIn is your is I think it's the best way to find a job. So add everything you can there, and people will notice you. It will be easy to find you.
Thanks, Laura. That's interesting that you had to remove the data engineer title from a headline. I have something I can share. So if you look at the demand by years of experience, yeah, it looks like for data engineering jobs, there are actually most of the jobs ask for like 3, because typically, when you read job descriptions, they will say like 3+ years or 5+ years, right? So you see like 32% asking for 3+, and 32 asking for like 5+. Yeah, that's just interesting. The job title is data engineer, but companies are looking for like experience, definitely. Yeah, Laura, your experience was amazing. But I think you had some work experience with an awesome company already, right? And that's why when you add data engineer later, people are very interested in that. But I think like companies, oh no, sorry, for career switchers, the toughest part is just getting their first job, right? I think both of you had data analytics experience. Looks like if you had data analytics experience, like transition to data engineering, you will still have an advantage. That's interesting. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
And
that's true. Actually, sorry. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, because we have like experience with data, right? And then it's easy to switch to another career in data. So because everything is related, right? But also I'd say like to find sometimes, as you mentioned, like sometimes it's not the engineer the name, right? So actually there's so many names. It's sometimes it's hard to find what exactly you want to do. I have this problem actually right now because my role is machine learning engineer, and then when I try to research about machine learning engineer, it's different from company to company. Sometimes machine learning engineer is the one who is doing the modeling. Sometimes is not. It's just take care of the infra. So yes, it's really difficult. Like you need to figure out what the name of the role you really want. And read the job description right now. Sometimes I say data engineer, but it's not exactly data engineer. It's more like, I think it would be analytics engineer, like more taking care of the data that will be feeding to reports. I think it would be more analytics engineer, right?
Yeah. I think Hamza probably has more to say about analytics engineer. It's very hot right now. But I think it'll, from my perspective, it's part of data engineering because analytics engineer build data warehouses. They're heavily involved in that, building dbt pipelines and stuff. They need to understand data modeling. It's getting very hot. I think because of the ecosystem, Snowflake, dbt, Fivetran, yeah. But like when you look at another type of data engineering job, which is more, let's say, big data focused or lakehouse, and these are companies that have a little bit different like philosophy when it comes to solving their data challenges. It also depends on the business, I guess. But yeah, it's these are some of the new trends. Analytics engineering is getting very popular. Any Hamza, anything you would like to add?
Yeah, no, I think, yeah. So when I started like 2 years ago, we don't see any job postings for analytics engineer, but now it's pretty easy to search, and with the tools that you mentioned, DBT, Fivetran, Stitch, Snowflake, Redshift, it's getting very popular. And so it is basically data engineering, except the loading and the extract part, which these tools can do for yourself. So I think it's a very exciting field. I think, and it doesn't mean that if you're becoming a data engineer, or if you go to a data engineering bootcamp, you cannot do analytics engineering. It's basically a subset of it. So I think you will have that experience as well. But it's getting really hot. The amount of jobs that I see around is just too much now.
Cool. All right, next question. What is your job hunting experience like? Well, I guess we covered this question already, so maybe we'll just move on and so we can have more time at the end for Q&A. Next question. What would be your suggestion for other career switchers?
So I guess I can go first here. So for career switchers, I think it's really important to plan your move, like be very diligent about how are you doing it. So like, is your goal, so firstly identify a goal. Is your goal to do the switch in 1 year or do the switch in 1.5 years? And it's really important to go to LinkedIn, send messages to people who are in the field that you want to switch your career in, and ask for recommendations that, what do you do, try to find the interest, and hopefully identify how much time you would need to do to switch it. So I think that is very core. My goal was to switch my career in 2 years. First year, I tried to use online resources, didn't work out. Second year, I just went for the bootcamp and was able to switch. The second thing I said is, even in your data is everywhere. So even in the job that you're doing, there is certain aspect of data that's there. Try to take those projects where that aspect you can highlight, because that will really help you in interviews or even in resume. When you have to write a line about data, you can say that I did that, I use data to do this. And a lot of people think that if they are not doing a data job, they're not doing anything related to data, which is completely wrong. The amount of skills that I can take from my old job to apply to data analyst job was something that was eye opener for me, because I thought I was not going to use anything, but there, like, Excel is everywhere. The laws that we are using data, the cleaning of data, we are doing it every day in our other jobs, but we just don't see it as that. So again, big data is a different realm, but there's still a lot that you can transition from your career into it. And then, yeah, just have a goal and try to reach out to people who have done it successfully or who are working on that field, and try to pick their brains and that what do they think. And then if you want to join a bootcamp, that's perfect. That's really good, because it's like very planned way of executing that goal, where you're getting help learning skills, as well as it helps you get a job in the end as well. So that would be my suggestion.
Awesome. And Laura, do you have any suggestions?
Well, I think is that everything. So yeah, I would just say like networking, I think is super important. Talk with other people, add them to LinkedIn, invite to coffee chats. I think this is super important. This will help you then after bootcamp to find a job, because yeah, it's good to know when people know that you are looking for a job or career switch. People always have some advices, and then other people like can see, like can remember about you, like for me at least at Telos, for example, we have a lot of programs for juniors. So every time I remember someone reach out to me about like joining as a junior or to switch careers, I always try to tell this person like, oh, we have the junior position opening, so let's try to apply. I always try to help people. So yeah, so for that you need like to be talking with other people, right? And exactly as I was saying, like have a goal, research about the career, research about what you need to know, as a junior, what is the basic things you need to know to get a job? Yeah, and that's it, and try to apply that. So, and
Thanks.
yeah, I think that's it. Sorry.
Thanks. You mentioned like networking. I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, back to Hamza, like, because he said when he got obviously impacted by the company job cut, and I was trying to connect to him with the director of a bank. Hamza, I'm not sure if you remember, but I connected with him later, and he said he was actually very interested in you, but I didn't realize that you actually 30% is really good rate, to be honest. Like you apply for 10 jobs, you get 2 offers. Yeah, you got pretty busy, and that's why you because otherwise I think that director was super interested in you. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think one of the benefits of the boot camp is that you make relationships that can help you in the future as well. So yeah, no, I was extremely lucky. I was especially in a bad market where you see layoffs happening all over the place, and then I get such a response of like 20% by offer ratio, but one interview I have to stop. That I already got an offer. I don't want to give more interviews. So I think I was extremely lucky, but yeah, that also tells how hot the market is right now.
Cool. All right. Well, these are all my questions, prepared questions. Now let's open it up. Vivian had a question to you guys. What you have learned in the boot camp most among the things you learned in the boot camp, what were the most beneficial to your job search and interview, and what's not covered in the boot camp?
So I guess I can go first again. So so if you're talking about specifically about job search, uh, the first thing, so going from the resume to interview stage, which is the first job search stage, I think the most beneficial was the career services that comes after the bootcamp with WeCloudData, because I didn't even know how to make the right resume for this for data engineering career. I knew how to make it for chemical engineering, but the way you make it is completely different. So that's why that was the first skill that was extremely important at that point. Now from interview to offer stage, then all these things that you learned in the boot camp. So there are Python tests, there are Python programming exams, there are SQL programming exams that you have to do, there are projects that you have to do. You have to talk like in my interviews, somebody asked, okay, what do you know about airflow? And you have to show them that you know stuff, and then they come and cross question things, right? Like okay, if this is happening, how would you fix that? And that's extremely important because in this industry where there is so much demand, they are looking for the right person much more, because there are so many people who have just read few things and they are giving interviews. So they keep on going deeper. But thank God in the boot camp, we did go deeper, and where I was able to answer questions quite easily because of that background in boot camp. So all the tools that I learned, I was being asked for that, uh, as well as what was not there. So one of the things that I see happening in data industry is tools change pretty quickly. So when I started my job search, DBT I think was there but was not that popular. And after bootcamp, I have to learn all about DBT afterwards, because that's the tool that's coming up right now. Now we have to think about it and learn about it. So I think bootcamp is there, but sometimes as you get further and further away from the bootcamp, you have to keep on learning yourself. And those topics are not covered right now in bootcamp, but that you have to pick up, that what tools are coming up, and you should start learning about them to keep you relevant to the job market.
Thanks, Hamza. Yeah, well, we're actually I think we're adding DBT to the curriculum, so it will be available in the new cohort. That's quite exciting. All right, next question from Jennifer. How many hours per week did you spend on the boot camp? Did you do the boot camp part-time or did you do the full-time? So just so you know, we have a part-time boot camp, but we also have what we call full-time, but we're actually rebranding that into part-time plus real project because the learning schedule will be the same. But we do have because most of the students in the part-time program, they have a full-time job, right? So they spend their weekday evenings and Saturday or sometimes Sunday learning with us. But for students who are actually just in transition, they're not working full-time, they can learn full-time with us, but the learning schedule will be this, they're in the same class as this part-time students, but the so-called full-time students, they actually spend more time Monday to Friday working on real company projects with our consulting company. So that helped them fill the experience gap. Yeah, but back to the question, Laura, Hamza, you guys would like to take on this one?
Yeah, I would say I attended the part-time one because I was working full-time, and I think I was not a good student. I was basically doing the minimum, I think it was 15 hours a week. So I attended the classes and then some of TAs, or sometimes I just spent Friday night working on the labs and the activities, because I was super overwhelmed. The bootcamp was super overwhelmed for me. And at the same time, I was in a new team, working in a new field, it's a totally different approach from my previous role. So that was super overwhelmed. So I did to spend my time learning my work, my real work, and then studying for the bootcamp. So yeah, so I think I would say 15 hours at least a week.
Cool. How about you, Hamza?
So I guess for me, so when I started learning bootcamp, everything was new. And I don't know if Shahwa remember, I contacted him, and the first topic is Linux, shell scripts and everything. And I'm like, I have no clue what's happening, and is it possible to skip this topic? Because I remember just looking at the line of code and I'm like, will I ever know what this means? Because I can spend half an hour understanding one line, but then the second line comes and shell scripts are 50 lines long. So I remember I hated the bootcamp when it started because it was just so much work. I think on average in the end, I was spending 20 hours a week. I was also doing it part-time. I had a full-time job. But I remember coming back from the job, I just went straight in, started learning about it. But this stuff is so interesting that you don't remember when the time passes. So, but overall, I think 20 hours, I used to go to the lectures, then rewatch the lectures because I'm a very slow learner. So it's 12 hours right there, and then 8 hours of labs and practice that I can do. So yeah, 20 hours per week would be my time.
I'm glad you said that, Hunza, because in the beginning, I knew nothing about Linux, scripts, anything. So I was totally lost. I had the same feeling.
I feel like this is going to be a big topic, a popular topic when we do the alumni reunion, because I've heard from other students saying that they did really enjoy the beginning, and there were students just frustrated who frustrated throughout the boot camp, and at that time I think obviously there are a lot of things we can improve in the boot camp and the support as well. But when everyone got the job, I think they're super happy. But yeah, I agree. The boot camp is not for the faint-hearted, because it was designed to be go pretty deep. You guys probably didn't join the pre-boot camp, but now we have the pre-boot camp, so we sort of made the admission requirement a bit more strict. So I think ideally Python and SQL are prerequisites, right? And then I think Eric also just added advanced Python programming. But if you absolutely come from no coding background, it will be very tough program. But yeah, but we're here to torture everyone and until they can complete the project. I think the challenge with learning data engineering is that there's just so many tools you need to learn. It could end up being like you learn a bunch of tools, but you still don't know how to make everything work. So I think after you complete like most of the students actually start to gain more confidence when they complete the midterm. So even though they still like not expert on every one of those topics, but at least they completed something end to end, and that's a sense of achievement. And then and I think things will start to get a lot better once you start to have more confidence. Yeah, that was interesting. Let's move on to the next question. From Cheyenne, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Being that you two were already established in your previous career, before switching to data engineering, were you concerned that you might experience a decrease in pay because you're starting at the bottom again in a new field? That's a really good question. And
yeah, that's
Hamza was, a typical example because he was leading a team. And remember, you told me I'm leading a team of 7 or 10 people already, right? In mechanical engineering.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I was really leading a team of 10 people in my career. And yeah, so this was one of the main questions that haunted me at nights when I was going through the boot camp is I'm working so hard. In the end, I'm earning less money because I have to start from the bottom again. So why am I doing it? So I guess how I answered it was two. So two things. Number one, uh, I knew that if I have to change my career, and the reason why I changed my career was because it wasn't interesting. I cannot see innovation happening in that career. I felt like I will just keep on doing the exact same thing again and again for years and years. So that's where my problem was. And the reason why I said I needed 2 years, that was my target, because the problem is, as I was growing in that career, the salary was increasing as well. And I didn't want salary to increase so much that it kills me to take to go to the bottom again. So I'm like, okay, 2 years, I have to figure it out, because if I stay in this career for 5 years, then the difference becomes just too much, that I will start having different ideas. So and when I ended up taking the cut, I think my salary cut was 40%, so 35%. That from my old job to the job that I got was 35% lower salary. But I knew one thing, and from my answers, you would see that I love planning. So the day when I started my data engineering bootcamp, I made a 5-year plan saying, I know how much this company is going to give me raise, because I was I was a manager, I knew that that would be my next position. I took the salaries of what I'm going to earn in 5 years, and I said, even after that salary cut I'm going to take, I'm going to make sure that I make that equivalent salary in next 5 years. So I will grow in the new career so fast that I can recover whatever I lost. And that plan gives me a lot of hope, and thank God, like right now I am already 2 years in 1.5 year in my career, and I already have makeup for 3 years. So the plan is going perfect right now. But anybody who has that concern that their salary is going to drop, it's going to drop. But I can tell you, if you make a 5-year plan, you will see why data engineering is the right choice, because the salary increase in all the other fields are not even equivalent to what you see in, or even close to what you see in data engineering, and if you get more senior into it. So that was my thing.
Yeah, for me, I think maybe I didn't mention that in my in the beginning, but I was not concerned because I was a newcomer to Canada, so I did already a big change in my life, and I was in the beginning of my career in Canada. So actually, I can say like my career started when I joined TELUS as a junior, data analyst. So they gave me the opportunity to join the company, knowing absolutely nothing about that kind of data. I used to work with healthcare, research in healthcare, so totally different. So nothing related to that. And when I decided that I like something else, because I decided data analysis was not for me because I didn't like the presentations part. So, and to be a data analyst, I would need to make presentations. So I decided I need to go somewhere more technical. I didn't know what before, but then when I realized, okay, data engineer is what I want to do. Still data, but more technical. So when I decided that and I joined the bootcamp, and then everything happened at the same time, switched to a new team. And then after the bootcamp, I had the opportunity to switch as a data engineer. Actually, as I attended this bootcamp, that was the reason why I received a raise. So my salary was pretty low already because I was a junior data analyst, but because I had the bootcamp and I had the knowledge and skills to be a data engineer, that was the reason why my manager could argue with the director and stuff to get me a raise, because she needed to hire a data engineer or a machine learning engineer in the case. And then she said, for me to hire a data engineer, that's the amount of money like I would need to pay for that person. So why not just increase the salary, lower salary, right? So actually that was a reason for me to have a raise. But I don't know, maybe my situation is different or maybe not, right? So we are in Canada, we have some maybe newcomers. So maybe that's another situation for someone here.
Thanks for sharing your story. That was very interesting. Well, there's another question from Samuel. Within your cohort, how great was the variation in skills among the students at the beginning of the bootcamp? Are they mostly experienced IT professionals, or many with little to no experience, or somewhere in between? Maybe you can speak for your cohort. I couldn't remember which cohort you guys are in. I can share my experience as well working with. I think I'm more familiar with cohort 3 or 4. Yeah, but I'll leave it to you guys to start. Yeah.
So I guess our so Laura, go ahead.
No, I'm trying to remember actually. I think I think you don't have like, we didn't have so many people like from IT, right? I think we just like a few.
Yeah, that was what I thought, right? Because I remember you guys were in the, in the early cohorts, like, a year and a half and 2 years ago, right? In the recent cohort that I know, a student that I worked with, we start to see more folks from IT. That was interesting, and that's why in our career guide we also had one section on like how to switch from IT to data engineering, because we start to see more demand coming from folks from IT support, from database administrator, from people who work in traditional ETL. They're working with kind of enterprise tools, but they would like to switch over and learn more open source tools. I definitely see more people coming from IT background, but coming from IT background doesn't really mean they have all the prerequisite, right? Because unless you're software engineers or you work with ETL already, there are a lot of people coming from DBA background, for example, and we have like in one cohort we had 2 data warehouse engineers, but they mainly work with Microsoft and also Oracle, and Oracle Exadata, I remember. So I think everyone's learning path will be a little bit different, even though you follow the same curriculum, right? Because if you come from data warehouse and database background, you absolutely need to learn more about Apache Spark and Python. Those are the things that you don't use a lot in your previous jobs. And And when you start to look for data engineering jobs, your past experience will be your advantage because you had ETL background already, but you're using like Spark open source to work with distributed systems, and you can focus on streaming data analytics and stuff like that. But there are also people from like just the traditional IT support background, and pick up coding is definitely the first step. So you need to learn Python and SQL. And even for DBAs, they're very good with, the database backend. They know SQL optimization really well, but on a day-to-day basis, they don't really analyze data. They don't really like do a lot of data transformations, right? So even though you know SQL, but it doesn't mean you can write data pipelines to process data really well. So those are the experience they need to add as well. We at the very beginning, we had more students who don't know coding. For example, Hamza is probably one of those examples, but I think in the recent cohorts, we sort of required a student to know at least Python and SQL. You don't need to have expert level, knowledge, but going through pre-bootcamp will be very helpful. So that sort of reduce the amount of friction you have when you go through the bootcamp. Yeah, that's my my comment on this. But Laura, like, do you guys anything you guys would like to share? Because I know you guys work with student, like your classmates more closely, right? Because when you work on project, you probably know each other better.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, I saw a few experienced IT professionals. One person works for Shawa right now, Nat, he was in my team. And then I remember there were some who were just computer science bachelor degree, like they just completed their bachelor degree and went in there. And there were some which are like me, had no idea what's happening and had to learn everything from the starting.
I think most of the people who's I remember my final project, like we were in a group project, was 3, and like we 3 like we knew absolutely nothing, like where the past experience was nothing related to it. So yeah, we struggled a lot, but we did it.
Yeah, I remember the presentation was pretty good actually. Yeah, cool. And also, I recently start to see more data scientists wanting to switch to data engineering. That was kind of interesting. Maybe it was cohort 2 or cohort 3. We had a student, actually a couple of students coming from data science background, but there was one student I remember really well because I helped him with the interview. He's from the United States. He got 3 offers. One from SparkPost, which is a marketing campaign like platform. The other one is Delta Airline. He got an offer from Deloitte as well. But most interestingly, he got interviews. That was, I think, end of 2021. And he actually had interviews with like all the big tech, Twitter, LinkedIn, Netflix, but he didn't get offers from those companies, but he did get 3 offers and he picked Delta Airline. Yeah, and he has really strong like data science background already. So some of those are machine learning engineering positions as well. But I start to see more data scientists, data science folks. Maybe they don't like like Laura, they don't like presentations. But definitely as part of the career path, there are people who want to go more technical, and data engineering is definitely booming right now. So yeah, we'll see more demand. And another question we often got was, is data science not as, the market trend is not as good as before? I would say no, because, they go hand in hand. Like if data engineering is growing, data science is absolutely growing. But it's just like when you look at the market, when you look at people around you, it's just more competitive. There are more people doing data science. There are more schools, providing data science training. They feel like it's very crowded, right? That's the truth. But data engineering is, the thing with data engineering is that there are a lot of people who work in data engineering, but if they would like to get into a job that does modern data engineering, there's still a lot of new tools they need to pick up, right? because you could have been doing DBAs or working with database systems for 10 years. But if you would like to go work as a big data developer, it almost feel like you're starting from scratch. Like you have to pick up Python, Scala, Spark, and all the new stuff in cloud. So, and that's why I think it's a very good window right now to consider becoming a data engineer. And of course, it needs to line up with your career objective. Cool. And very insightful answer. Thanks. I'm a senior associate scientist at a major pharma. Oh, cool. Yeah. Thanks for sharing your experience. Oh, you know Tolu? Yeah, that was Tolu. He's the person I'm talking about. Yeah. I didn't know that you know him. Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got a question.
Go ahead.
A lot of the FANG companies they focus so much on DSA, which is data structures and algorithms, even though most of the companies don't really use that much advanced DSA. How much of those DSA questions are you seeing with the Canadian companies? Like, are they really drilling the data engineers on DSAs, or are they just touching on the Python at a very high level and not going deep down?
My personal experience, I've been doing this for quite a few years now, but we're more in consulting, so I don't go to interviews, but I worked with many students. I remember a student in the US, which is not Tolu, but that student got interview from Facebook as well. That's an actual data engineer, interview from Facebook. The interview question was actually not DSA related. They gave him a take-home assignment and asked him to solve a particular challenge, and definitely you'll get SQL and sometimes Python related interview questions. SQL is sort of like a must-have. Like Laura, Hamza, you guys can share your experience, but a lot of companies will give you SQL test, right? Because the thing with data engineering is that you're applying these programming tools to solve practical challenges. So even if you're very good with data structure, but if you work as analytics engineer building modern data warehouse, doing data ingestion, like that's not required. Like you need to be very good at SQL. And sometimes the questions are like data infrastructure related. Hamza mentioned like Airflow, but I remember a student getting even questions about how do you deploy Airflow cluster, right? The student would like, oh, we learned this in a bootcamp, we deployed Airflow in a Docker container, but the question was like, there are different ways of deploying Airflow, right, in production, and they were looking at her portfolio project and asking very specific questions about how they actually deployed the Airflow cluster, and yeah, so in big tech, I feel like no matter what, you have to do the DSA, and so which means you can apply for a data engineering job and you don't come from data engineering background. If you can pass the DSA and if you're good at SQL, you can still get a data engineer job with most of the big tech company. But if we are talking about getting a data engineer job in the banks, in telecom, or because most of the jobs are from other regular industries, right? So I don't think DSA is a big deal. Most of the companies will give you SQL and Python test, from my experience. And sometimes they give you Spark test as well. They even open source their questions. Like I remember we had a couple of students who had interviews with the same company over the last 3 years, and their interview question is exactly the same, and everyone can find that on GitHub. And every time when I looked at it, it was okay, the question hasn't changed. But very interestingly, they know, you can find that and even, get prepared even before you start an interview. But interestingly, like, it's not about, how well prepared, like, you are, or you have some solutions already. Like when you actually present the solution to them, they will go deep and ask you questions. How did you make this decision? And why did you do it this way? Because when it comes to data engineering, there might be 100 different tools that allow you to do the same thing. And sometimes it's an optimization problem. Like companies will ask you, it is okay that you can use all 5 different tools, and it doesn't matter. Like they don't expect you to know the best solution, because the best solution, there's always constraints. Like, is it the best solution for this company for this particular question, right? What is the budget constraint? Like, you're not always going with the best tools, because those might be very costly when it comes to implementation, right? So budget is constrained, and sometimes the performance, right? How the latency requirement, right? Or sometimes maybe latency is not a big issue. So, and the size of the data, how scalable you want that to be. And that's why even they keep it open source, like the interview questions, but when they actually ask you questions, they can learn a lot about you, and how much do you actually know about data engineering? Because every single day you're making some sort of small decision, and they're looking for people who can make a sound decision most of the time. And that's important. Like, you don't go to your managers and say, hey, which tool should I use? How do I make this decision? And that's probably not a good sign. But yeah, Hamza, Laura, do you guys have anything to add?
I guess, yeah, as you said, I think my experience was pretty similar. There's only one interview where I got asked about data structures and algorithm question, and that was Scala. And I remember they started asking me about all this stuff. I didn't know that well. Anyways, so I didn't. The interview didn't go well. But other than that, I think always there's a SQL test. And in one company, I got a Python test where I have to present them the AWS architecture, how I will make the architecture altogether. So cloud skills were important as well, but definitely SQL is the most common test I saw. And yeah, even one company, I got referred to this company, and they were like, and after the interview, I'm like, okay, what's the next step? Should I get a SQL test? And they're like, no, because you had such a high reference, we don't need to know about your SQL. And I was like, okay, is this the right company even? Because I'm like, I need SQL test. Like, this is not right if I'm not doing a SQL test. So always there is a SQL test coming up or a Python test coming up.
That's true. Yeah, I did one interview last year, and they required a SQL test and a Python one. The Python one was pretty hard, actually. They were asking about the big O notation, but like the SQL one was normal, like pretty easy, not complicated.
Cool. Yeah, but regardless, I think we need to get prepared for the DSA type of interview questions, right? And because definitely you'll come across some of these, and some employers will even ask for live coding or pair programming. We start to see more of those. But I think for data engineering, SQL, Python are still the most important, and company may ask you, we start to see more like end-to-end type of take-home assignment, because it's kind of hard to tell if you can actually do the work. So they will ask you, like, give you a data set. But the interesting thing about data engineering in interview is that, to test your knowledge and skills, like, it's not like data science. They can just give you a data set, and then you can just use Colab or Jupyter Notebook, right? You don't have to worry about tools. But with data engineering, programming languages is not the most important. Like, they will say, like, yeah, use SQL or use Spark, use Python, whatever tool you want to use, right, to solve this challenge. But then they will say, okay, you need to have a database. Then you have to install the database yourself. So you do that in a Docker container, right? They may want you to scale that. Then you probably have to work with, Databricks or AWS somewhere. Sometimes it's, you have to use the cloud. So yeah, there are definitely more tools you need to be comfortable with, even in order to complete an interview assessment. Ooh, any other questions? Thank you, Jennifer. And thanks for all the great questions. Yeah, I guess that's it. So again, I'd highly recommend everyone to read the data engineer career guide, because I think we our faculty team has really put a lot of effort into this. All the tools you need to learn, we've sort of open sourced it. It's our curriculum, and you can follow that. We had a lot of details and recommendations as well. It's definitely state of art. Things like DBT, analytics engineering. We touched on reverse ETL, all the new concepts, but definitely this field is moving so fast, and there are a lot of legacy tools that you don't even need to worry too much about, because most of the companies are moving to the cloud. And but this trend is sort of also hurting the traditional IT department, right? Because when you move to the cloud, the need for the traditional IT roles will definitely decrease. But hopefully this career guide can be helpful. And again, I would like to thank Laura and Hamza for spending an hour and a half with us. And yes, it was very insightful. Thank you so much for joining this panel. And I'll see everyone next time.